My name is Ali Parnian, and for those of you who don't know me, in the last decade, I've helped hundreds of business owners and leaders from large multi-billion-dollar orgs to small startups effectively and, more importantly, sustainably improve their profitability and their individual quality of life while minimizing frustration. And the name of the webinar today is Wanted Frustrated Business Owners. So I hope all of you have a little bit of frustration going on, or maybe you're just curious. And I hope to provide some next steps to minimize your frustration. And what inspired today's webinar was actually the day before I set it up a month ago. So let's say a month and a week ago. Over the course of 2 days, I had 3 different conversations with different business owners. And these business owners had companies that were doing somewhere between, one's doing about $1 million a year, one's doing just under 15 million a year in revenue, so substantially different sizes. And they were all frustrated with some version of not having enough time because they, as an individual, were needed for every part of their very special, very unique business. And part of the frustration was that they also wanted to work on higher level things. For example, they had creative things they wanted to work on, innovative things, and that's just outside of their personal life of things they wanted to do. And they also saw no way out of the day-to-day operations. And as I questioned them a little bit, they saw it as a bit of a chicken and the egg problem for them. Well, if I had time to do this, but I don't have time because I'm too busy doing all the different things in my very special, unique business case. So with my experience with many, many organizations, there is a solution to this. There is a process. And at different stages of growth as business owners, we all get stuck, or maybe we don't have the different perspective, or we just want to know what's the next thing that will break us free of this chicken and egg pattern. So my hope today is to provide some steps, and I'm going to provide a lot of resources at the end. Because what really touched me in these conversations with 2 of the 3 people actually had physical health issues related to their level of stress. One of them had to go to the hospital twice in the last month. So it's pretty serious, and I think it's unnecessary. Or logically, people would say, well, if it's impacting your health, why don't you just stop doing X, Y, and Z? But it's really hard when that thing that you built that maybe is your identity, that's your source of income or your source of, solving whatever fear, whatever's going on. There's a lot going on that people don't necessarily make the most logical decision. So I also hope a standardized process will help. If any of you that are listening to this recording or are here on the call today to minimize those types of things happening and transition to the other side of things where things are fulfilling and successful and you have freedom of time. So the 3 areas we're going to touch on today provide high level practical tactics around finding where the bottleneck is in your specific business, implementing key processes to resolve those bottlenecks and free up your time, and ultimately really enjoying your business, which if you're in a frustrated state, it may not even be something you're allowing yourself for your mind to go there, but it is possible. And to kind of add to that, for those of you who actually have employees, I'll be providing a bonus at the end of this session, one-on-one time with me. And if you like the process I'm going to show you, it's actually even more impactful when you do it with your team. It'll set up a good foundation for you to have the people who are going to actually be helping you make those changes or understand why the changes are important. So I'll be offering you that at the end. And if it's not something that you find valuable, then that's great. Let's not utilize each other's time in an ineffective way. And then for everyone else, even if you're a solopreneur or you maybe have a contractor or someone working with you, so that's fine. You're still going to get a lot of value out of this, and maybe even learn some concepts or things that you can teach others. Or if you're in an organization that maybe could use some of this, you can share this information with your coworkers or the owner of the company. So what I'd like to do is let's start by putting in the chat. I think I've configured this where you can put this in the chat. So put in the chat what your top 2 frustrations are so I could get some context in my example. So what are your top 2 frustrations? Go ahead and put it in there. Okay. Administration tedium. Okay. Great. Keep them coming. A couple, some of you may have more than two. So just, yeah, go ahead. So we've got cash flow constraints. Okay. And that's certainly a function of a lot of other things. If it's cash flow constraints, conflicting priorities. Yep. Very, very common one. What do you do first? Okay. That's good. And continue to add them. I'm going to move on here. Those are all those are things I've heard before. Time management, a big one. Not wanting to do the things that are most important. And yeah, how do you determine what's most important? So that's all very relevant here. So I'd like to talk about questions that people have, like even just me introducing this. You may have some things in the back of your head that I'd like to address. I want to answer these questions. Sometimes, people will say, well, will it work? Like, what is this framework? I racked my brain to figure out what I need to do. How hard is it? Can I do it? Again, in my special, unique snowflake situation or company? And is it even worth the effort? So it actually worked out really well. On Monday, I had a chance to interview an on and off longtime client of mine, and I wanted to share their story because it is pretty inspirational as to what can happen when you put some of these things in place. Now, today I'm going to talk about the step one, and there are multiple steps here, and I'll even tell you where you could find the steps. But here's a little bit of a case study. So this interview will actually be available on YouTube in the next week. I'm going to put it out there. The case study is a husband and wife team called Zane's Law. They are 22 years old. They started with an office in Tucson and they expanded. And actually, the reason I visited them because they just built out a brand new office near 33rd and Camelback. Really nice, really high end. If you watch the video, you'll see it. And they have a premium offering. So they're not like these law firm accident attorneys that are just like churn and burn and high volume. Like they've always prided themselves in doing the best for their client. So the reason I give these details is it's really impressive. It's growth is great, but growing from $100,000 to $120,000 is not as impressive as growing from $10 million to $16 million to $20+ million, right? The higher the baseline, the more challenging it is to grow. And in this case, this was in addition to a husband and wife team, it was also a family business in the sense that they had siblings in the business, nephews, children in the business. And when they re-engaged me with the very process that I'm going to share with you in 2021, the first thing that I did with them is exactly what I'm going to take you all through today. And there were other steps along the way as they got good at one thing. We added other elements. They refined how they use their culture. We had one-on-ones and a lot of other things that they introduced. The fact that they knew the value of this was very telling in just how they think about business and scaling and growth. So back in 2021, they had 2 locations and about 45 employees. And today they have about 20% fewer employees. They're still a very premium offering. And if you look at the growth, it's incredible. First year was 20%, 40% on top of that, above 2022, 60% on top of 2024. That's where they're on track for. So, in this case, the additional reason I share the family business is because family businesses can be very dysfunctional. Family businesses are challenging. If you think accountability is important in a non-family business, when everyone's eyeing you, looking for is there favoritism going on? When someone's related to you, it's a little harder to be objectively accountable to them because you're either going to be going home with them that day or they're going to see them on Thanksgiving or whatever the case is. So this process worked for them phenomenally. One of many organizations that have been able to successfully sustain and see the results. And I just wanted to share this with you because in your own unique business, understanding that there are challenges and no company's perfect, I hope this answers some of those questions like, will it work? Well, if you follow the process, yes, it will work. How hard is it? Steps are straightforward. You need to, just like anything else, you need to invest the time to do it and do it, try to do it as consistently as possible. But it's better than putting out fires, putting systems in place. Can you do it? Well, I have seen some of the most challenging and dysfunctional leadership teams in my time, you could imagine. And the ones who do it see results. And a lot of those dysfunctional ones, they were dysfunctional for a reason. It wasn't for lack of trying or wanting. It's just that they weren't clear on the rules of the game, what they need to do, and they weren't doing the things consistently. And so, yeah, as far as is it worth it? Yeah, creating an environment where you've got freedom, enjoying your time, which is our most valuable limited resource. It's absolutely worth it if you put the steps in place. So I will move on to the steps. So step one is to list the processes in your specific business. So when we talk about this concept of finding the bottleneck in your business, the first step, the thing that's restraining you from achieving profitability or impact if you're a nonprofit, is usually some constraint, which is the main constraint. And so the first step to find out what that is, let's know what all the processes are in your business. So what I did is I used a couple of examples here, and I listed what the key processes are in a couple of different types of businesses. And this is at a very high level, but that's where we always start. We start at a high level. So for example, so I think most of you are probably in the professional services side of things, the people that attended the webinar today, but I looked at the profile. So if you're in professional services, again, this is kind of very generic high level, but to help you understand and make the point, professional services, the general processes in that business is first, you need people to understand you exist. So you would call that your marketing process. Then when they find out you exist, you would sell them your offering, whatever that professional service is. So we'll call that your sales process. It's, oh, hey, I heard that you do this thing. And then you talk to them like, wow, you're the right person to do this thing for me. Here's a check, right? Sales process. Then whatever that magical service is you provide better than anyone else, service delivery. And then once they get the service or while they're getting the service, the next process is your customer service. If they're having issues during and even after, to make sure that they're happy customers. And then, oh, by the way, if it's not just you, you have employees that you need to train and develop to provide services almost as good or even better than you can. So that's your employee development, all the steps along from the time you hire an employee till you train them and you keep, adding value there. And then not maybe, but then actually the most important step is actually what we're talking about now is the management operating system. What is the system whereby you manage your business and organize your business so that all of these things can happen? And we'll talk about in detail what a management operating system is, but this is an example for a professional service. I want to share a different example just so if your business is different or someone's watching this, you understand how it changes slightly depending on your business. So in a construction services company, for example, yes, you have a marketing process. Your sales process is a little bit different. They would call it their estimation and bidding process, right? Estimate too high, you won't get the job. Estimate too low, you lose a lot of money and you're on the hook to deliver. They have more of a project management process, right? You have a very complicated thing you're building over many years. And so you want people that are really good at doing that. That whole process, again, can make or break you. On time, with quality, you want to deliver the thing. You have procurement and supplier management. Now you have physical things that you need to get. And some of these things, like for example, I heard in the housing or construction industry, these little electric fuse boxes, because of COVID, there's a supply chain that you can have everything ready, but you have to wait 2 years to get these things. So that could really mess up your business and have an unhappy customer experience. Quality control and safety, right? OSHA regulated. Client relationships and communication. So that the process, however you do that, you want them to feel like they're there every step of the way while you're building the house or the building or whatever it may be. Labor and workforce management, that's your biggest expense. So you need to do that really well. And again, your management operating system. How do you keep all these things aligned so people are doing the right things in the right order so you have no bottlenecks? One more example, because it's different enough, nonprofit organizations. On nonprofit organizations, um, over the last year and a half, I have dedicated half of my free time just to helping nonprofits with these processes. And by the way, if any of you know of a nonprofit that is near and dear to your heart that makes a big impact, I'd love an email intro, and I'll do strategy sessions and things with them with my time permitting. But nonprofit organizations are different, right? Their goal is usually to make an impact, but that's also closely tied to the funds they raise. No money, no mission. So for nonprofits, their systems are their marketing process, their fundraising process. They don't call it sales. Their membership experience. If you're paying to be a member of this nonprofit, you want to make it a great experience and communicate that value. A lot of nonprofits get money through grant writing. I had worked with one of the largest nonprofits in the country, and they had a whole team of people that were expert at grant writing, and they generated many millions of dollars from that process. Education and outreach, program management, volunteer management, different than labor management. These are volunteers. And again, your management operating system is what keeps it all together, so people know what they're focusing on and continually improving to create more value for the organization. So those were 3 examples of the first step. First, identify the unique processes at a high level in your business. You may see some of them overlap, but that's okay. You identify those levels, and then you get to understand, or you get to hypothesize, and as the owner, you'll have more of a gut feeling, but these are good conversations to have with your team. Of all of these processes today, which one is the biggest bottleneck, the biggest thing that's preventing us from achieving impact or profitability? So for example, if you're in a business where you have leads, people that are, interested in buying your services, but you're not closing them at a high rate, or you're the only person who can sell them effectively, then that may be your biggest challenge. It's the sales process. If you have more sales than you know what to do with, and you're doing so much business that the projects are falling through the cracks and customers are getting frustrated, then you have a delivery process. It could be also hiring and training process challenge, right? So at any given time, there's some part of your business that is limiting the net result you want, which is usually net profit. Okay, so I'm going to share the prior slide. I'd like for those of you who are on today, if you weren't keeping track, share with me what you, based on whatever business you're in, share what you think your biggest 1 or 2 bottlenecks are. Which processes in your current state are the biggest bottlenecks? I'll kind of go through these slowly so you can pick them. But as you think through this, a lot of these are going to be repeated in your organization. Which ones today is the one that is that you think, if you improved it, would help your bottom line or help your impact? So we have let's see. Yep, issues with service delivery, customer service. We have professional services, marketing. Yeah, marketing is a huge opportunity. And that's it's kind of the main first process, right? So sometimes especially if it's a newer company, marketing is a challenge, right? Because you can't have customers without marketing. Although I will say, if you have a referral process or an introduction process, there is no better marketing than a satisfied current customer or an intentional process to get introductions from your existing customers who love you, or sell your existing customers additional things. So that's just a tip in case you're in that scenario where you can leverage that. Okay, employee development and management ops. Perfect. Okay, so as that's top of mind, so what's the next step? Okay, we've listed in our unique business the different key processes. We've identified which one is the biggest constraint. And now the next step is we want to improve that area that is the constraint. Because if we don't improve it, nothing's going to change. And this is every team ever I've talked to. There's never been a team that says, I've got so much free time that I'm kind of wondering what I should do. Everyone's busy. And so in addition to being busy, you need to find a way to cherry pick the very few things that in your extra time or your team's extra time, you can improve that will open up that bottleneck. So this is not about making everything better. It's about high leverage things that will make the biggest difference. So here's the next, here's a quote. 10 years ago, I interviewed for the Phoenix Business Journal. I interviewed the CEO of Fender, who had recently taken over. He has a background in Disney and Nike, major behemoth companies. And when I talked to him I was talking about culture and what his process is, what his management process is. And he said, the best companies have the best processes, period. So I said, okay, well, what do you think about culture? He's like, I don't care about culture. He said, I care about culture, but for me, culture is just another process in your organization. And it's true. And actually, that's something that over the years we introduced. Zane's Law has a culture process. When you watch the interview, they'll tell you exactly what they do with their culture, how they use it for interviewing up front, for developing people, for it being a gateway to getting compensation, additional compensation. So processes, I'm saying this word 100 times during this webinar, but this is true. This is just a pill you'll have to swallow if you want to, if you want a business that is just dependent on you and maybe can't scale so well. That may be fine if it suits your needs and that's your fulfilling success story. That's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you want to grow and grow in profitability and have employees, you need processes, because when you don't have processes in place, and of course it's like a recipe, the right ones in the right order, which we're trying to determine today, you will end up where everything is going through you and you feel stressed and you feel frustrated, and hopefully no one's going to the emergency room, but this is a real side effect. So the biggest disadvantage that I have and I had, and maybe you all have, is that if you don't know what good looks like, just identifying that, hey, I need to improve my marketing. Let's say, my employee development and management ops, I need to improve. We've got a few people on the marketing technology. If I know that that's the biggest constraint, that alone doesn't solve it. I need to know what good looks like. Okay, so that's going to be your disadvantage. Now, a lot of people in organizations, they will subscribe to trade magazines. They will join masterminds within their niche. They will do all these different things. They'll do research and they'll get a sense. They'll talk to other people, they'll get a sense of what good looks like. It's like, hey, you're doing this for marketing. Oh, maybe that'll work for me. That's fine. Today, as I was actually building this out, and this maybe goes, I know technology is a big topic with GPTs. I actually decided to create just a few hours ago a custom GPT in ChatGPT that all you need, and I'll provide this link for you all in a follow-up email, where you just put the industry you're in. Like my example was, I have a HVAC company, or the other ones, I have a consulting company in IT, and I primarily get my leads through referrals. And what it does, it will spit out the key processes in that type of organization and the 5 best practices that in your specific organization are being used with links. So that was super cool. And that'll just get your brain going from a brainstorming standpoint. So if you're in a unique business, or you could find a business that's similar to it, that link will help you. And if you already subscribe to ChatGPT, this custom one will be free. If you don't subscribe, I don't believe you can access it unless they change the rules. But anyway, that's just, a fun exercise. You don't have to recreate the prompt. It's basically created there for you. So, but that is the big disadvantage. If you don't know what good looks like in each key process, you really won't know what the next step is. But let's go one level deeper. So whether you use that GPT or you already know what in your specific, we could use marketing as an example, because several of you have the marketing challenge right now. This is what the next step is. So you take that list. If we were doing professional services, you take that list and you go one level deeper, especially in that area that you felt was the biggest bottleneck. So if you have professional services and you said marketing is my biggest challenge, then you list what good looks like. So what good, call it sub processes, look like in marketing is, first, you need some kind of standardized marketing process. So maybe you've learned some things along the way. Advertising in LinkedIn, doing this, doing that works really well. So you want to just keep those things that are working standardized in a playbook. I use the word playbook. a lot of organizations use the word standard operating procedure or SOP, but however you capture the things you did learn. And then what the next thing that looks good in marketing is you need some kind of customer relationship management platform, CRM, because that is going to leverage your time. You don't have to remember who to call and follow up on. You could set what are called drip campaigns, and I'm sure you get them flooded in your inbox where you subscribe to something because you were interested, and then every week they're sending you new information. These are all very valuable. Depending on your business professional service, you can be educating your prospective clients until they're ready to make a decision without having to remember who they are. So again, this is very broad, but there are certain things that if you look at the more successful organizations, they have in place. And the end result is you're just going to get more qualified leads, right? Instead of me trying to go to some networking event and meet people one-on-one, I can have technology do it for me. Now, I'll learn some things that are effective and ineffective, and I'll do more of the ones that work, but you need a process behind it, okay? And again, you can use the GPT or just your own research to see what good looks like in your industry. But that is one example. Now, on the, and here's some examples in other categories in case some of these were your area of focus. You'll see this concept of playbook, standardize everything. You don't have a process unless you've standardized even the 1.0 version. I would say that the top in these strategy sessions I've done for so many organizations, the top to-do item ends up being, and I word it this way intentionally, ends up being, create the 1.0 version of your playbook, because it's either the owner knows how to sell or they have a few people, but they never put it down. So just get started. It's not going to be perfect, but just get it started. Here are the steps. And now even with the tools, AI tools, it makes it really easy. You can just speak into your phone. It'll spit out a outline and graphics, et cetera, to make it easy. You can translate it to different languages with a click of a button. There's so many cool tools out there. If any of you want to reach out to me, I'll be happy to share different resources where you could, at least experiment or understand what the tools are that are out there. But that is an example for professional services. So the next step is basically find out what good looks like and then take the next step. So if the next step is, hey, look, I'm not closing well, or that person's not closing well. I don't even know what my process is. I just do it. Now I need to hire someone to do it. Well, maybe your next actions are next actions are outline your sales process as a playbook and then start to interview for that person you're going to hire. That could be it. Those two steps are the next logical step to unblock your bottleneck. If you have people coming to you that they want to buy, but you're just too busy in other stuff, and then you can kind of work your way from there. So always focus on the bottleneck, understand what the process is, and start to improve the process. With respect to the management operating system, I'm really focusing on this one because I mentioned this is the key to you not being that restraint for the overall organization. This is the key to having a self-sustained company. So when you have an effective management operating system, just like I wrote here, you have a playbook of how you set goals, what your goals are. Everyone has roles and responsibilities. Everyone knows how they're supposed to behave. One-to-ones are happening. Performance assessments are happening. Your compensation is tied to results, and you have tools to sustain it. So that is the ideal state if you have a management operating system that is working well. And so transitioning to a self-managed model, and when I say self-manage, as I mentioned, you're not involved in every single decision. Your team is running the day-to-day. One of the best definitions of a good leader is I like saying that you're getting results through your team, okay? When you're in a state of chaos and frustration, real or perceived, you feel like you have to be involved in everything. So when you're self-sustained, your team is running the day-to-day. And of course, the reason it's important is because now you can focus on those higher level things. You can think of strategic things. You can use your creativity in the business that maybe help you launch the first thing you're successful at and do additional things. So smoother operations. And, by the way, if you have a company that's more on the spectrum of this self-managed ideal I'm talking about, the valuation is more. If you ever want to exit or sell your company, someone's going to say, can this company run without, let's say it's me, can it run without Ali? No, it's his name. All the people report to him. He delivers everything. He's the only one that knows the secret sauce. But if there's a whole team of people and playbooks for everything, and you prove it and you can, easily make it from one person to 10 people, then they're going to buy your company, because they're like, wow, the systems are in place. So I could just put more money in it and maybe advertise and market more and make even, 10x more profit than the company. So there's a lot of good, but I really want to focus on yourself as an individual, because being an entrepreneur is very challenging. It's very stressful. And so let's start with that benefit and then, worry about the exit or growth moving forward. So, those are basically, so far it's been a good exercise in, find your bottleneck, find the process, find out what you need to do to improve the process. That's great. Really, a lot of this, for those of you listening who have teams of people, a lot of it is not as meaningful, because if you're the only one sitting in this webinar today and you have to do all the work, you really getting results through your team, you really need them to be part of the process of really understanding what the processes of your organization are. Why, let's say, marketing is more important to focus on than some other part of your organizations. So, when your team understands what your processes are in your business and why unblocking one area is more important than another from a priority perspective, you're going to get their buy-in. You're going to get 10 times better results, because that's a lot different than you just meeting with them and saying, hey, I just had an epiphany. My marketing process is broken and and here's what good looks like. And we don't even have a CRM. So we need to find a CRM. That could all be true. And that could be the absolute next thing you need to do. But that lands on your team a lot different than if you take them through the exact same process that we did here. So they understand the why and the what, and they can give input. Like, I was in an organization where everyone said marketing, marketing, marketing. And then I asked a few questions. I said, well, you said that you need more marketing, more leads. But at the same time, you said your sales closing process is like 20%, where it should be 80%. So if instead of just spending money on marketing ads, you improved your sales process, you trained your salespeople to sell the way you do, and you went from a 20% close to a 40% close rate, that would literally be like doubling your marketing budget in terms of results, right? So it's good to have your team's perspective when you decide on what is the actual bottleneck. I highly recommend that. All of these processes I'm sharing with you today are in a book written by my former business partner, Lee Benson, when I was president of Execute to Win. And the book is called Your Most Important Number. It's a best-selling book. It has a whole section on how to do this, how to do it yourself. There are probably some resources there. So if this format resonates with you, I recommend you read the book. You'll get a lot more detail than I could do in this short webinar here. And what I do want to share with you, though, is I'm going to talk about the bonus at the beginning. So if you have employees, I am offering a 2-hour strategy session to kickstart this first step, to basically facilitate with your team so they all get the buy-in, this exact process. We'll start with, if net profit is your goal, what are all the processes in your unique business? We'll talk about, we'll have a discussion around which one is the most important, and we'll validate that. And then we'll dive deep into the ones that you need to focus on next and identify what good looks like and come up with initiatives with people's names, due dates, who's going to do what by when, which that alone, a lot of people don't get that out of a full day strategy session. So I'm going to do this by Zoom. And it's really something I'm passionate about because I've seen how it's impacted people's lives, et cetera. As I mentioned, for nonprofits, I'm happy to do this as well. And questions people ask is, do I need to be prepared? No preparation needed. You will keep all the information. I'll have screen captures of the goals we come up with, et cetera. So, and you'll have the tools by reading the book, et cetera, where you can just kind of take the process and continue having those discussions all throughout the year so that your team will be aligned on where the next bottleneck is. And more importantly, they will be accountable or start the path of accountability, understanding why it's so important that I don't drag my feet on that sales playbook, because that is the most high value thing I can do today to drive results versus something that I may enjoy doing, but it has very little impact. So I may be really good at, I don't know, putting together PowerPoints, which I'm clearly not, but if I'm really good at putting together PowerPoints, and that's my go-to, humans like to be busy. So here I am doing this thing that I think is really good for the company, but what I really should be doing is carving out half a day and writing my sales scripts that work the best or things like that. So I'm offering that to you. And the way you would book that is there's a QR code here. You can scan it. You can find a slot on my calendar. I do travel a lot, so you'll see big chunks of time are missing. But if you could find, again, this 2 hours is for if you have if you have employees. So if you're a solopreneur, it won't be as helpful. Basically, what we did today is pretty much kind of, it's going to get you to that point. But to get your team to buy in, this sets a good foundation for it. So please feel free to go ahead and book this. And then the video of interviews, I've interviewed a lot of people who've gone through this process, and just general things that I feel are inspirational, motivational for business owners and leaders. So my YouTube channel, you can subscribe to that. You'll get dinged when I upload that interview with Zane's Law Couple. Or Claudia Zane's was the interview, it just was with her, but at Parney on Power. I want to thank you all for being here. And
Ali, this is Eric. I've got a question.
yeah,
So you talk about the playbook, and when you said that, it was like if you could imagine the big light bulb going off over my head, that the moment of, oh gosh, that makes perfect sense. How how detailed do you recommend that be? Is it something that just initially we should just start off with a few bullet points and continue to build out over time, or what's been your experience in
yeah,
a successful playbook, right? Because I could see it also becoming this onerous task that
yeah.
you start to be unhappy with, which would defeat the purpose. So that's why,
No, that is a great question. So
yeah.
now that we have time, I will definitely go into some details. So if you go to my website, impactdelivered.com, and there's a subtab called Impact Giving, at the bottom of that page, you'll see a bunch of resources. These are questions that constantly came up with people that I was volunteering my time with nonprofits. So, I have, I think, a video about operations and playbooks, and even, sample questions if you're hiring someone in operations. But part of that, to answer your specific question, is I would suggest starting very high level with just the bullets of the steps and adding to it. Now, some people do this in a simple, Google Doc, something that could be accessed by other people, and they'll add the steps. As organizations get more employees and they need to actually train people against that, they'll use software, like I hear software like Notion or other tools where it's like an internal wiki page. The nice thing, and I actually just had this conversation with my younger sister, 10 years younger, who is running the family business I had mentioned back in the day that I was a part of. Renee was part of that. Hi, Renee. Blast from the past. Is to, I told her, I said, do not train another, it's a furniture retail business. Do not train another salesperson unless you record it. Record that. And there's tools, you could literally take that recording, put it in an AI tool, and it'll transcribe it into table format. It'll have the video right there, and it'll even create slides for you. And then you can say, I want this in Spanish because I'm hiring someone that speaks Spanish, and they can see it. So now here's the maintenance piece of it, right? I'm sure we've all seen some binder with some standard operating procedure back in the day. Maybe when we got hired and we took it and we looked at it and like, oh, that's really nice. And maybe we thumbed through it and then put it in a drawer, and then we learned how to actually do our jobs. So that's not really effective if it's not being touched on a regular basis. So what I recommend, for every playbook, there should be an owner to the playbook. And that owner's job is to keep it up to date. That owner's job is to also, when things go wrong, so let's say you're closing sales at a high rate and something happens in the world, AI happens and suddenly you're closing less, and you realize, oh, I shouldn't talk about A, I should talk about B, and that seems to be working. That owner is to put it in the playbook. They update it, and they make sure the changes that happen don't impact a few steps down the road. So I would say keep it as simple as it needs to be. Simpler is better. You can create a simple outline and then have a bunch of detail for each of the major steps, with the lens of, how could we maintain this? It really comes to play when you have specific scripts that are working
Mhm.
for, let's say, sales. I like the sales example because every business needs sales or donations. And so yeah, I don't want to give a one size answer because a big company will have it very detailed with videos. But the best company, I think I put it in maybe in the details. So like for
Mhm.
onboarding and training, which is where this really comes into play, the best organizations, they actually have universities. They have, let's say, my company's called Impact Delivered. They'd have Impact Delivered You. And when you're a new employee, you go through the onboarding courses and you get certified for that. And then if I'm a salesperson for, there's a client I had that had did paving outside. They had a great program where they had really detailed, they would actually train people and then test them and then take the results of the test compared to how other people that scored at that level did. I mean, you can go really deep in this. I would just, simple answer is as simple as it needs to be to get the result, and then you can make it more complex later. But just get started. Having even a 10-point outline is more effective. And then here's another tactic I recommend. When you hire your first person that's responsible for that, or if you hire someone
Mhm.
to free up your time, one of the biggest unlocks for people that feel overwhelmed in their business is to hire an operations person. That's why I have questions in those resources for how to hire a good operations person. But even that operations person, you give them your basic outline on how to do, I don't know, accounting or something, and you say, here, I'm going to train you on this. I want you, new operations person, to be responsible for maintaining this. Anything that you get lost on, I want you to add to it. And then when first time I do it, you watch me, you add to that simple playbook. Second time we do it together. Third time, if as you see things are missed or you have questions, just keep it adding it. So now they're the owner of the playbook, and it also helped you onboard them in a more effective way. Anyway, did that answer your question, Eric?
It did, and I went to your website and I've got the
Okay,
document
cool.
up now, the
Very cool.
components of a sales playbook as the example. So
Love
it's
it.
a
Okay, perfect.
perfect place to start. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, you're very welcome. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. Um, if there are no other questions, I would love to hear from for those of you who hung out with me for about 45 minutes. I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway from today's discussion, just so I can maybe enhance it in the future and just know where your head's at. I'll call on you, Mike. Mike, what was your biggest takeaway?
Um, I'm not sure. I've done a lot of the same work, Ali, with a lot of
Okay.
my clients over the years.
Excellent.
So I think, yeah, really trying to target the bottleneck is really probably the best thought there. You
Okay.
can't you can't build the process out for everything all at once, and that's
Yes,
obviously small business owner's dilemma. Where do you spend your time and energy doing that? Because it is an investment in your future.
absolutely.
Um,
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And thanks for doing the work. Um, Mafam, what was your biggest takeaway? I know we've talked about some of this stuff before. Are you able to talk? Okay, well, I'll wait till you figure out the audio. I'll move on to Renee. Renee, what's your biggest
Sure.
takeaway? Well,
I would say the biggest takeaway was prioritizing and using things like the AI tool to help do that. I'm a type of person, I think everything is a priority, and that gets, of
mm,
course, stress levels up and it gets you overwhelmed. I'm a solopreneur, as you mentioned. So I'm a company of one. I want to be able to be efficient, and a lot of times I get in that bottleneck situation where I don't know where to start. So instead of being intimidated by the tools such as AI, to use them to our benefit to be better owners.
great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Aaron.
so
Oh,
my
Mafam, good. You made it.
takeaway, yeah, I have to figure it out on my phone. Yeah, my takeaway, I mean, you hit it on you hit it when you said you had your sister, you said it next time you hire somebody and you train them, record it. Like that was like wow for me. Like I'm gonna be training somebody next week and I didn't even think about recording the training and then putting it in AI. So That was the biggest takeaway for me, to just kind of really adopt technology instead of being afraid of it, especially with AI. I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use any of that. And so I really need to use it to the benefit of our businesses, and to incorporate more of that, especially with training. I'm actually excited to learn more about that.
Yeah, yeah, and to add to that, the perspective I gave my sisters, every time you train someone without recording it, you're just wasting your time, because you know at some point you'll either have to hire another person or there's churn. So you're literally intentionally wasting your time.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's brilliant.
Versus in your case, Mapam, imagine you hire that new person, even if it's not the best quality video, even if you don't have a chance to translate it to, you could say, look, instead of you know, waiting for, I don't know, waiting during a break for a customer to come and just watch the video. They're going to get, for what's basic for you, they're going to get so much out of it, and they'll ask a bunch of questions. So even poor quality is 10 times better than nothing.
That's a great
Working
point. So
efficiently.
when you're recording, is it like a self-record, or you have it on a pedestal? Like what?
It just depends. If I'm
Okay.
if I'm talking to you and it's just stuff I'm talking about, I can at least record the words. If I'm showing them how to use, let's say, an accounting software, I'll just do a
Okay.
screen recording and it'll catch my face and what I'm saying. I mean, it's better to record. Memory is inexpensive now. You might as well do that. So thank you, Meva. Eric, biggest takeaway.
Yeah. 'Cause sometimes the simplest things, to stop and reflect and rethink what we're doing, right? I mean, we're all busy. We all have more commitments than we can get done, but we've got to schedule time to stop and reflect on that, and perhaps challenge ourselves, right? And what I'm doing now the best that I can do, right? Or is there something I can do better using technology, using the recordings, or just stopping and thinking, which oftentimes we don't have the luxury to do, right? But it's crucial, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And Jerry, I know you were on earlier. I don't know if you're still on. If you are, you can unmute and ask your question. Looks like you may not be. So I just want to thank all of you for joining me today. I will probably put this up also on my YouTube channel so that others can get the benefit of it. And I will follow up with some links I promised all of you. I will probably end up, since I don't have everyone's emails here, I will probably send it through LinkedIn chat as well. But thank you all. Have a really productive rest of your week.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.